Hello and welcome to another little sort of video about the B17, the Mighty 8th VR game that is being developed and produced by Microprose. Now, this is just going to be the FAQs and other little tidbits of information that's a bit more in-depth, a bit more in detail of what the game is hopefully going to have in it. So unlike the previous video, which was what is the game and when are we going to expect it, this is more of a everything that they've listed that the game should include. So these FAQs were posted on the B17 Mighty 8th FAQ channel within the Microprose Discord page. And these were posted back in June, and this I'm going to go through them all one by one and we'll get to it. Very first question is a nice and simple one and a very quick response. Will the title be VR exclusive? In which point the answer to that was, at this point, yes. Next question, what VR hardware is planned to be supported by the game? The answer to that was, at this stage, most of the major brands will be supported. And now we start to get more into the actual gameplay side of things. The question was, will guns be able to get jammed? Can someone else on the plane unjam the guns along with replenishing the ammo for certain guns that use belts? Very, very short response, yes. That means clearing jammings and things like that and running ammunition back and forth throughout the aircraft is going to be a thing. Great! Then a question came out about a bit of customization. Will we be able to do any customization of the B17 propellers, for example, to select the propeller tip colors? And the answer to that was not planned at this stage, but all things are possible. So unfortunately, we're not going to have neon pink tips for our propeller blades, at least not at the moment. Next question is regarding the actual aircraft and the cooperative itself. Can we only share the same aircraft in cooperative mode, or could we have several players spread across several bombers? So I'm guessing they're thinking, could we have 10 people in one bomber, 10 in another, or 5 in one, 5 in another, kind of like how games like Wolfpack have done their things. The answer to that was, all players will share the same aircraft. I'm guessing by that response, all 10 are going to be in one single B-17 bomber, or whichever bomber it is that you've selected for your campaign. Okay, the next one's a bit of a long question, so we're just going to go straight into it. It's been mentioned that the bombers will be somewhat repairable in flight beyond simple damage control. To what extent will this be possible? In the specific example given, a hole in the fuselage and the cables were cut. Did the crews have the tools to do these repairs, like splicing the cable and restore sufficient tension in this specific instance? Are these mechanics a concession to gameplay, or was there actual historical precedent for these kinds of repairs? And the answer to that was, as it is, there is a mix, and the final list of faults that can be repaired is still work in progress. So it sounds like they haven't quite nailed down exactly how much damage the frame can take versus how much repairs we're able to do in flight. You know, the last question was a long one. This one's the longest one that we've got, so let's see if I can do this in a single take, and it turns out, actually, I have not. This has taken several. There's extensive documentation on the B-17's electrical systems. How accurately will this be simulated? Can we blow specific fuses by drawing too much current on specific circuits, and are those fuses replaceable or resettable? If the aircraft is damaged in such a way as to sever part of the wiring harness, will that accurately simulated as to only affect the parts of the aircraft that wiring severed? There are several known issues with the wiring system on the B-17, such as the propeller feathering motors not being fused. The prop feather buttons are fused, but the motors themselves are not. Thus, attempting to feather multiple engines at once could potentially start a fire and damage the cabling. Similarly, you know what I'm on about. A dead battery can result in a short circuit which could rapidly damage the rest of the system if left connected. Will these sorts of faults be simulated? Also, is the APU in the gunnery compartment present? There we go, I got through that, but it took a few attempts, and I still messed it up, but you get the gist of it. And the answer to that was, again, we are trying to reproduce many faults that can happen during the course of the mission, and at this stage, it's still too early to say how deep we will go with this. But it is a game after all, and we need to balance this type of detail. We hope we can give a well-rounded experience. So hopefully, we'll get things as realistic as possible without making it absolutely painful. Well, then again, I'm actually wanting it to be incredibly realistic and painful, but that's just me. What about you? Let me know in the comments below. Alright, this one's a bit of a long question, but not as long as the last one. The instrumentation of in the cockpit of the B-17 consists of entirely analog gauges which are capable of experiencing their own minor faults. Things like needles getting stuck on the manifold pressure gauges requiring you to adjust your throttle to force the needle to move, or by tapping of the glass in frustration. These add a lot of character to the aircraft and potential minor inaccuracies that can lead to interesting outcomes. Additionally, can the instrumentation itself be damaged, such as individual gauges being shot out? Good example, if you've ever seen the movie Memphis Belle, when the fighter hits the front of the aircraft, it absolutely destroys the whole front end of the panel, and all their gauges and things like that stop working. So if you haven't seen that movie, you should watch it. Anyway, and the answer to that question was yes. Nice and simple and to the point, just yes. The next question is about giving, well, each aircraft its own unique sort of characteristics and feel to them. In a way. Will the performance of each part in each plane be randomized to give each specific aircraft a unique feel? Will we need to calibrate our turbos and other settings accordingly before each flight? Will the failure rates also be simulated? And the response to that was, too early to say. Failure rates will be simulated on many parts and equipment. So we are going to see things fail over time and mid-mission, and we're going to have some interesting experiences when you're flying at altitude and all of a sudden your oil pressure decides that it doesn't need to be pressurized anymore. This question was a bit of a repeat from one that was just earlier mentioned, but we'll go for it anyway. The ammo for each of the 50 cals, or the caliber 50s, if you've ever seen the Chieftain, was stored in boxes and commonly transported from one station to the next as needed. Will this be possible? And that's a solid yes. I get to throw ammo cans at everyone. I'm going to pick one up and I'm going to just throw it at people. Go, ammo for you, ammo for you, ammo for everyone. For those curious about radios, guess what? Here's a question about radios. What function will radios, and by extension the radio operator, have given that every other bomber in the formation will be presumably controlled by AI, who tend to make poor conversation? So I'm guessing the question to that basically means, what will the radio operator do, and what will he be able to do? And the response to that, unfortunately, was still work in progress to what can be done. So I think at this point we're just going to kind of guess, but my assumption would be that the radio operator would have a list of things they could probably click on. If you've ever played B17 Mighty 8th, it was just things that were already there you could click on and you could just go through the motions. And chances are it'll be an earlier style of B17, so the radio operator should hopefully have their own little machine gun above their heads. So they'll have something to do when they're not clicking random things, or in our case, waving a wand about. And sure enough, there would have to be some kind of medical question on here, because what's going to happen in the plane? You're probably going to get shot. And the question is, how will player injury be handled? Medical supplies on board were limited, and injuries ranged from bullets to flak to your suit's heater catching on fire, and most injuries were fatal. How extensive is the first aid system in this title, or will this be as simplified as health packs for gameplay reasons? Now that would be funny. My arm's been shot off. Yeet a first aid kit at their face, their arm grows back, they're straight back in the 50. Nah, that's not the answer is, but that would be quite funny as well. But no, so the answer to this question is, players and crew can be injured, and other players and crew can render assistance where possible. There will be various levels of injury, some can be treated and other not so lucky. We would like to make this part of the game realistic, including getting on the ground quickly to get additional help. So I'm expecting a lot of people to take a flak to the face and suddenly be met with either a respawn screen spectator camera or your friend crouching over you saying, "Don't do that." Now, I can guarantee you, when you first heard about this game and you heard it was in VR, you heard you could be with your friends, you thought of this too, because I did as well, and I'm kind of curious to see what they'll do with this. The question being, this one is admittedly a bit of a joke. You say that until it happens, and then it won't be a joke anymore. But how will this game handle fancy flying? If I invert the plane in flight, is everyone going to be walking on the ceiling? What if I execute a perfect 1G loop or a parabolic dive? Will the gravity be simulated accordingly? In which the response to that, unfortunately, too early to say. Will we be able to feel the effects of zero gravity by doing a perfect dive? Or will we be able to stick your friends to the floor doing a loop? Or have them fall out of an open window because you've done a barrel roll? Yeah, it needs to be a thing. We need to know this sooner rather than later. So come on, devs, let us know. Come on, chop chop. Now, this question does make you think how much of a cluster this is going to be when you and 10 of your friends have made a boo-boo and you need to get out of the plane, because that's exactly what this question is about. How will bailing out be handled? Will players be able to throw themselves out the nearest opening and pull the ripcord as they fall? What about a catastrophic breakup of the aircraft resulting in the ejection of the crew? Will those lucky enough to be wearing a parachute be able to safely make it down? The answer to this was, in the event that you need to bail out, you will be able to make your way to the nearest exit point and get out, if you can get to it. We want to make this fairly dramatic, so the player has a real sense that they need to leave the aircraft. I'm sorry, but if I'm a waist gunner and I can see that our wings have decided to meet in the middle and there's a fire and the noses fell off and the tail has fell off, I'm pretty sure that's pretty dramatic and I need to leave the aircraft. Don't worry, we're nearly at the end of the FAQ, so let's get on with the last few questions. Will we be able to use custom nose art on our bombers? Nose art is one of the most famous aspects of these bombers, and it goes a long way to personalizing your aircraft. Will we be able to use custom image files as decals on our aircraft, or perhaps even be able to mod the entire skin of the aircraft to our liking? The answer to that was yes at this stage. So you will be able to make it look like an actual original wartime bomber of your choosing, or you could make it potentially bright pink with a silly decal on the front. Personally, I'm going to go for the more realistic, probably early style camouflage, where you've got the nice dark green, like the OD green, and a nice good sort of custom nose art job. Maybe one of those weird split designs where they changed from, when they were going from that sort of unpainted stainless to the painted green. Now, this question is about modding, and yes, they have stated that they're going to be quite open with the modding side of things. And the question is modding planned for this title, and if so, to what extent? Is only basic asset swapping planned, or will we be able to script new functionality? Will we be able to implement our own custom bombers, such as the B25 or the variants like the YB40? And trust me, you wanna, if you don't know what the YB40 is, go have a look, 'cause it's really cool. And actually, if that was in the game, that would be pretty sweet. And the answer to that was yet to be decided to what level, but we are aiming to keep it fairly open. So don't commit to making yourself a custom bomber just yet, but it would be cool if we could. And look at that, we're at the final question of the posted FAQs, and that is quite an interesting one, and it's about DLC. And the question is, are you open to the idea of adding additional bombers in the future as DLC, such as the renowned B29? And the answer to that is yes, very much so. So, right now, what we are aware of in terms of bombers is the B17 and different variations of, and the B24. That's what's at least is posted on the websites and things like that. But I'm going to get into that in just a second, because there's a little bit more information I want to share in just a second. But in this regards, officially, yes, we will be hopefully getting additional bombers via DLC throughout the life of the game. And that's all of the FAQ responses that were posted on the Discord. Now, there is a lot more information that has been sort of shared, but a lot of it's kind of we'd hope to, and things like that. Not a lot of it seems to be guaranteed concrete information. But a few things I will sort of add to you is some of the stuff that has been collected by the community that has been posted. And I'm just going to give a few little tidbits because some of it you will like to hear the sound of. One of which is the Lancaster Bomber is also going to be in the Mighty 8 VR as an aircraft that you can fly, as well as many of the support fighters from both sides. So I'm guessing that would also include the little friends. I'd wait until you see that officially posted. That just seems to be what has been collected by the community, but it sounds like that is the case. We do have actual potential for fighters, but from what I'm also understanding, they are not a priority. Fighters are probably going to be the last thing we see. But the Lancaster Bomber, the B-24, and the B-17 seems to be the three main aircraft that we can choose. And a few other bits of information. They're also looking to have quick missions, so you and your friends or you and yourself can quickly get into a scenario, like straight into a bombing run or straight into enemy territory, as well as being in an entire 25 mission campaign. And your goal is to survive through to the end. And obviously you have to make sure that your aircraft is serviced, repaired throughout the whole campaign. And it also seems like they're exploring the idea of requiring a training campaign for players to qualify in their crew positions before joining a crew online. So effectively means that if you wish to be a pilot online, you do the pilot training that unlocks your ability to be a pilot online, and same with a gunner. And so basically means if you play, there should be ample training for every role for each player. So if you're going to play with your friends, you should all be able to do the training, so you know exactly what you're doing, you know exactly how to fly, you know exactly how to gun, you know exactly how to repair. And the same will go for if you're playing online in a public sort of scenario. I'm going to rattle off a few last little bits here. So they're also looking to have a highly detailed destruction modeling, highly detailed destruction modeling, and how it will affect the aircraft will also be a thing. Same with all the systems for failures and emergencies that can go wrong. They're also looking at having you have to basically go through the whole startup sequence for a B-17 or the bomber in question that you're going to be flying, which means if you'll need to know how to start the aircraft from cold, which will be really cool. I'm actually looking forward to completely butchering that up and flooding the engines or forgetting to do something with the intercoolers or whatever, and that'll be something I'll do a lot. I'd hate to be in my own crew for this. And the last bit of information that I have to give you is the planned early access is still slated for Q4 2023. That seems to be as it is. Nothing's changed. So hopefully we will get some actual information soon. And if we do, I promise I will make another terrible video about it. And yes, I'm looking forward to it. I am really looking forward to it. And I will get around to making a few update videos on the other two games as well. So the Bloody 100th, which is the more sort of first-person version of the Mighty 8. So that's you actually being in the aircraft, but not in VR. But they're also looking at adding VR to that as well, just so that you're aware. And possibly co-op. Well, I'll get into that when I get a video on that. And I'm also going to do a video on the Mighty 8 Redux. So that's the brand new, ground-up rebuild from scratch of the original Mighty 8 game that we all come to know and love. So thank you for watching. If you liked what you saw, or you heard, if you just listened to it, let me know in the comments. I'll make some more videos in that regards. Are you looking forward to this B17 VR game? Are you looking forward to any of these VR or even B17 games from Microprose. I'm looking forward to all of them. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.